All right, our meeting is now being recorded. Again, good day everyone and welcome to another class with me, teacher Clarissa. How are you, Daphne? Are you doing great?
I'm great, teacher.
Okay, we have a fine weather this afternoon. It's quite gloomy, so I hope you pay attention and listen carefully throughout the discussion. Will you do that for me, Daphne?
Yes po.
Okay. Before we start, here are some of our classroom rules. There you go. I'd like to remind you to use the raise hand button if you wish to speak. Turn on your microphone only when you are called by the teacher and use the Google Meet chat box only for discussion-related questions or responses. Are my instructions clear, Daphne?
Yes.
Okay. So before we proceed to the discussion for today, let's first have a recap of what we had yesterday. Last time, right, we discussed what multi-word verbs are. We said that multi-word verbs are verbs that contain more than one verb. Do you still remember, Daphne?
Yes po.
Okay. And a multi-word verb consists of two parts. What are these parts, Daphne? Do you still remember? We have the main verb and the particle, right?
Yes.
Okay. So multi-word verbs contain a main verb and a particle, and these particles could be a preposition or an adverb. We also mentioned that some of these multi-word verbs have more than one meaning. They can be separable or inseparable, and some are transitive and some are intransitive. Okay. Now here are some of the examples that we had previously. The first one is call off. In the sentence, the bride called off the wedding, what do we mean by the multi-word verb call off, Daphne?
Cancel.
Cancel. See if the bride canceled the wedding. Right, that's correct. Call off means to cancel. What about hand in? I'm sure you're familiar with this word because
Yes
most
po.
like, right? Where do you often see or hear these words?
School.
In school. So what do you think is the meaning of hand in?
To submit
To
something.
submit something. Let's see if that's correct. You got it correct. Hand in means to submit something, right? So when students hand in their works to their teacher, it means they submit their works to their teacher. Good job. What about set up?
Arrange.
Arrange. Let's see if that's correct. That is correct also. Set up means to arrange. That's why in the sentence, Mary set up the living room based on her preference. We can also say that Mary arranged the living room based on her preference. Good job, Daphne. What about these set of multi-word verbs from yesterday? I think these are still fresh from your mind. What do we
Yes.
mean by drop by, Daphne?
Visit.
Visit, or particularly to make a casual visit, right? There you go. What about eat out?
Dine in a restaurant.
Okay, by eat out, we mean to dine in a restaurant. So when we say my friends and I love to dine in a restaurant on weekends, we can also say that my friends and I love to eat out on weekends. Okay, what about pass out? We use the sentence, the runner passed out after the race. Now, what do you think is the meaning of pass out in that sentence? Daphne?
Faint or lost consciousness.
Okay, that's correct too. Pass out means to lose consciousness or to faint. Job well done, Daphne. You still remember most of the words that we discussed yesterday? But before we proceed to another set of multi-word verbs this afternoon, I'd like to ask you first, are you a morning person, Daphne? By
No
morning person,
po.
we say, you know what a morning person is, Daphne? Are you familiar?
Yes.
What is a morning person? Can you explain that to me? How do you define a morning person?
Um, Maaga po ako nagigising.
All right, maaga pong nagigising or someone who wakes up early and feels very much productive during the day or during morning, right? Now, my question is, do you find it hard to wake up early in the morning or no?
Yes, it's
You
hard.
find it hard waking up in the morning?
Yes,
Yes, but you easily get awakened by the sound of the alarm clock. Yes or no?
yes po.
Yes. Now, seems like you are a morning person, but what about some other people who find it hard to wake up in the morning, early in the morning? For this afternoon, we will be reading a text about a person who finds it hard to wake up early in the morning and who finds it hard to wake up even if there is a sound of an alarm clock. Okay? So before we read the text, I'd like you to take note of the multi-word verbs in each part of the text. So I want you to grab your notebook and your pen. And as we read the text, I want you to take note of the multi-word verbs in each part of the text. Is that clear, Daphne?
Yes po.
Okay. Also, this story is just short. It's just a 3-paragraph story, but I decided to divide it into 8 parts so that we can read it simultaneously. So here's what we're going to do. I will be reading first the first part, then you will have to read the next part. Then I will read the next part, and then your part. Is that clear, Daphne?
Yes.
So I won't have to call your name to read the text. Remember your part, okay? After me, it's your part, and then after you, I will be reading the part, and then after me is you again. Okay?
Okay po.
Okay. So let's start reading the story. This is the story about Nick. Okay, I'll read first. For his whole life, Nick has never been able to get up early. When he was in elementary school, his mother would set the alarm clock for 6 a.m., but it would not wake him up.
When Nick was in high school, his alarm clock would go off, but he simply turned it off and went back to sleep.
Every morning, his father would shout, "Come on, Nick, you're going to be late." The shouting did not help, however. On a few days, Nick would show up 2 hours late.
Nick knew that his school would not put up with this situation much longer. His parents were frustrated, but they could not give up.
Mm. One day, Nick's mom came across a blog on the internet where people were sharing their stories about oversleeping and different solutions they had come up with to solve their problems.
After going over a few of these stories and realizing there could be an underlying health issue, Nick's mother made up her mind that the best advice was to look for a sleep specialist on the internet.
After checking out several websites, Nick's mom found out about a specialist for her son's condition. She called him up and left a message.
The next day, the doctor called her back to talk about Nick's situation. Now the family is counting on him to help solve Nick's problem.
Okay, that's the end of our story. So this one is the story about Nick's condition, right? And what's the condition of Nick in the story? Daphne, do you still remember?
He can't wake up early.
He can't wake up early in the morning, right? To the point wherein even his dad would shout every morning to tell him to wake up because he'll be late, but still he could not wake up early, right? And one day, Nick's mom came across a blog showing different solutions and explaining why a person could not wake up easily in the morning, right? And what and the next thing that happened is that Nick's mom go over these blogs, and then decided or come up with a decision to contact a specialist about Nick's condition. And right now, they're counting on the doctor to help solve Nick's problem. Okay. Now, what are the multi-word verbs used in the text? Were you able to take note of some of the multi-word verbs in the text, Daphne? Would you give me one
Yes
multi-word
po.
verb? Yes, Daphne.
Wake up.
All right. There is wake up in the text. What else? Do you still remember any other multi-word verb from the text aside from wake up?
Turn off.
Turn off. We also had get up, right? Okay. So for you to remember some of the multi-word verbs present in the text, let's look into it one more time. There you go. Okay. So in the first part of the text, we have here the multi-word verb get up. For his whole life, Nick has never been able to get up early. Okay, so that is the first multi-word verb. Now, Daphne, based on the sentence, what do you think is the meaning of get up?
Nick can get out of bed physically.
Okay, that's correct. When we say get up, it means to physically get out of the bed, right? Now, what about wake up? Because on the latter part of this part, we have here the multi-word verb wake up. What do you think is the difference between get up and wake up? You said earlier that to get up means to physically get out of the bed. Now, what about wake up, Daphne?
Wake
Any
up,
guesses?
however, is just awake from sleep.
That's good. Wake up is just to simply wake from sleep. Let's see if that's correct. There you go. You actually got it correct, Daphne. Good job. By get up, we mean to physically get out of bed, rather, and usually to start the day. By wake up, we mean to be awake from sleep. So when you tell your father to get up, you're telling him to physically get out of the bed, right? So that's the difference between get up and wake up. Good job, Daphne. What about for this part? We have go off, turned off, and went back. So the first one is when Nick was in high school, his alarm clock would go off. What do you think is the meaning of go off? What does it mean when something goes off? Daphne,
Um,
any
to
guesses?
become active.
To become active. Why did you say so? Why do you think the meaning of go off is to become active? Daphne, can we say because
Um,
of the alarm clock in this
eh,
sentence?
yes po, kasi alam ko. Kasi parang magka-function pa lang or magiging active pa lang ng alarm clock.
Okay, that's correct. We say that something goes off based on this sentence because the alarm clock is just going to start off, right? Okay, and the following sentence is he simply turned it off, meaning the alarm clock went off, meaning it got activated, it produced the alarm sound, let's say, and then Nick simply turned it off. Okay, that's good. We also have here the multi-word verb went back. Let's see the meaning of these three multi-word verbs. So the first one is go off, and you actually got it correct again, Daphne. By go off in that sentence, it means to become active or to begin to function. So therefore, in the sentence, let's go back. His alarm clock would go off. We can also say that when his alarm clock turned on, or when his alarm clock began to function, rather, he would simply turn it off. There you go. By turn off, we mean to stop the operation or flow of something by means of a valve, switch, or button. right? We used this example in a previous discussion. Now, by went back, we mean to return to doing something. Okay? So, in the second part earlier, we mentioned that Nick would simply turn off the alarm clock after it went off and then would went back to sleep or would go back to sleep. Okay. Now, what about for the third part? The multi-word verb in this part is come on and show up. In the sentence, come on, Nick, you're going to be late. What do you think is the meaning of come on, Daphne?
Hurry up.
Hurry up, that's good. We can replace come on by saying, hurry up, Nick, you're going to be late. That's a good observation. Very good. What about show up? On a few days, Nick would show up 2 hours late.
Arrive or appear.
Okay, very good as well. On a few days, Nick would appear or would show 2 hours late. Let's see if your answers are correct. You're actually good at this, Daphne. Very good. All right. So earlier you said that in the sentence, come on, Nick, you're going to be late. Come on means to encourage someone to hurry up. Very good. But in some instances, come on can also be used to express different feelings and emotions. Okay, Daphne, remember that. Come on contains not just one meaning. Okay? We can also use the word come on to express a feeling of disbelief or frustration. Like, for example, someone tells you that the moon is shaped as square. And in disbelief, you'd say, come on, that's not true. Okay, so that's another way to use the word come on. Now, we also have here show up, which you mentioned earlier that the meaning is to arrive or appear, which actually you also got correct too. By show up, we mean to arrive or appear. Now, in the fourth part, we have two multi-word verbs here. We have the first one is put up with, and the second one is give up. What do you think is the meaning of put up with, Daphne, based on the sentence? Nick knew that his school would not put up with the situation much longer. What does it mean to
Um,
put up with?
Tolerate.
Tolerate, that's a good word. What about in give up? His parents were frustrated, but they could not give up. When do we
They
give up?
could they could not stop having hope.
Okay, they could not stop having hope. Let's see if your answers are correct. Okay, that's correct. To put up with means to tolerate or endure something. So, in the sentence here, Nick knew that his school would not put up with this situation much longer. We can replace put up with the word tolerate. Because to put up with means to tolerate something or someone. Okay, so Nick knew that his school would not tolerate this situation much longer. Very good. Now, in the latter part of the text, we use the multi-word verb give up. By give up, it means to stop having hope. You actually got the exact words for this part, Daphne. Very good. By give up, it means to stop having hope. On the fifth part of our text, we have here two multi-word verbs. The first one is came across, and the second one is come up with. The first one is one day, Nick's mom came across a blog on the internet where people were sharing their stories about oversleeping. What do you think is the meaning of came across?
She
That.
finds something or someone by chance.
Okay. By came across, we mean to find something, right? In this case, what did Nick's mom found or find, Daphne?
A blog.
A blog. Very good. What about what about the multi-word verb come up with? Do you have any idea what is the meaning of this word? The sentence
Um,
goes,
to think of an idea or plan.
Okay, very good. Come up with means to think of an idea or a plan. In this case, what idea did Nick's mom come up with? Daphne?
Um, she come up with contacting that what she found.
Okay. She come up with an idea to solve the problems of her son Nick. Right, Daphne?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. So here are the words from that part. We have the first one, came across, which means to meet someone or find something by chance. So like what you said earlier, in that part, we use came across when Nick's mother find a blog showing or explaining rather the condition of her son Nick. The next one is come up with. There you go, you got it also correct. To come up with means to suggest or think of an idea or a plan. Very good. Now for the sixth part, we have here going over, made up, and look for. So the first one is after going over a few of these stories and realizing there could be an underlying health issue, Nick's mother made up her mind that the best advice was to look for a sleep specialist on the internet. So what do you think is the meaning of going over? What does it mean to go over? I'm quite sure I mentioned this on our previous discussion, Daphne. Any
Yes, it
guesses?
means to review.
Okay, very good. By going over, it means to review or to look back into the things that you are reviewing. Okay. What about made up? What do you think is the meaning of made up?
To make a decision.
Very good. By made up, it means to make a decision. So in this case, Nick's mother made a decision that the best advice was to look for a sleep specialist on the internet. Now, what do you think is the meaning of look for, Daphne?
To search for something.
Okay, very good as well. Mhm. There you go. My presentation is quite lagging. All right. So by go over, we mean to review, just like what we mentioned earlier. Made up, you're correct. It means to make a decision about something. And look for, to search for something or someone. In the text earlier, the mother looked for a specialist, right? A sleep specialist for Nick. Now, for the seventh part, we have three multi-word verbs. The first one is checking out. In this sentence, after checking out several websites, Nick's mom found out about a specialist for her son's condition. In this sentence, what do you think is the meaning of check out, Daphne? What does it mean to check out something?
To examine something to learn more about it.
Okay, very good. To examine something to learn more about it. Let's see if that is correct. That's correct. Now, check out is a multi-word verb that possesses more than one meaning. Okay, so in this text, we use check out to examine something in order to learn about it more. But in other cases, check out can be used to leave a premise or to leave a place. For instance, when we say we checked out in our hotel a few moments earlier. So by check out means to leave a place. Have you heard of that term, Daphne? To check
Yes
out in a
po.
hotel, right? Okay. So this multi-word verb contains more than one meaning, check out. We also have found out. Found out means to discover a fact or piece of information. I'm quite sure you've been hearing this multi-word verb often. I found out that there are a lot of things in the internet today. So found out means to discover a fact or a piece of information. And lastly, to call up. To call up means to telephone someone. Okay? For the last part, the next day, the doctor called her back to talk about Nick's situation. Now, the family is counting on him to help solve Nick's problem. So, our multi-word verbs here are call back, which means to phone someone again or to phone someone who phoned you earlier. Okay, so let's say I called you a few moments earlier and you tried to call me back, but the line was busy. So that means you tried to phone me because I phoned you earlier. Okay? We also have talk about, which means to discuss. I've been hearing you using this multi-word verb often. It means to discuss, okay? And lastly, count on. What do you think is the meaning of count on, Daphne?
Relying on someone.
To rely on someone. Let's see if that's correct. Okay, that's correct. To count on means to rely on someone or something. In this case, the family is counting on the doctor. They're relying on the doctor's um, specialization to cure or to somewhat explain the condition of Nick. Job well done, Daphne. Now, on this part of our lesson, I'd like to test your knowledge in terms of the multi-word verbs that we discussed today to the new set of multi-word verbs that we discussed earlier. So let's try. Following multi-word verbs in a sentence. Okay, create a sentence with the multi-word verbs in it. Okay, is that clear, Daphne?
Yes po.
Okay, so here are the multi-word verbs for this afternoon. The first one is talk about, the second one is made up, and the last one is put up with. I'm giving you 3 minutes to construct one sentence per multi-word verb. Is that clear, Daphne? Do you have
Yes
questions?
po. No, none.
Okay, your 3 minutes start now. Okay, it seems like you're done composing your sentence already, Daphne.
Yes.
Okay. Shall we hear your sentence? Would you like to share your sentence, Daphne?
Yes po.
Okay, what's the first sentence that you created or you wrote? The first one is talk about.
Cyril and I are going to talk about medicine later.
Okay. Cyril, is that right? Cyril.
Cyril,
Cyril. Cyril and I are going to talk about
medicine later.
medicine later. So you're going to discuss about medicine later. Are you fond of medicine, Daphne?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, that's good to hear. By talk about, we mean what again, Daphne?
To discuss something.
Okay, so later, Cyril and you will be discussing about medicine, right? Is that right,
Yes
Daphne?
po.
Okay. What about your next sentence? Would you like to share? For made up.
I've made up my mind that I'm not
Okay.
going to law school.
Okay, that sounded like a lyric from a song. I've made up my mind that you're not going to law school. Is that correct, Daphne?
Yes po.
Okay, by made up, you mean, what is it again?
I made a decision about
Okay.
something.
So you made the decision not to go to law school. It seems like you're pursuing medicine, Daphne. That's good to hear. But that sentence kind of sounded like a song from maybe Adele. What about the third multi-word verb here? We have put up with. What's the sentence that you created for put up with, Daphne?
I can put up with the house being untidy, but I
Mhm.
hate it if it is not clean.
Okay. I can't put up with the house being untidy. Did I hear it correct?
Yes,
But what's the next words?
but I hate it if it is not clean.
Oh, but you hate it if it's not clean. Okay, that's good. What do you mean by put up with in that sentence, Daphne?
To tolerate something.
Okay. So it means you can tolerate an untidy house, but you hate it if it's not clean. Is that right, Daphne?
Yes,
Okay, therefore you have to clean your house every day to avoid having an untidy house. Okay. Great job, Daphne. Those sentences are wonderful. You were able to use the multi-word verbs that we discussed today in your own sentence, says rather. So here's the reference to the story that we read earlier. If there are no more questions, would you like to clarify anything, Daphne, before we end our discussion for today?
none po.
No more questions. Again, what are multi-word verbs, Daphne? Daphne?
Those are verbs that contain more than one verb.
Okay, those are verbs that contain more than one verb. It is a combination of a main verb plus a particle, right? And we also said that multi-word verbs can be separable or inseparable. They can be transitive or intransitive. And some multi-word verbs have more than one meaning. Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you so much for joining me today, Daphne. I'd like you to review your notes in your home later before you sleep or as you're studying. Review your notes again. But if there are no more questions, thank you so much for joining me today, Daphne. Thank you for joining me in our class today. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you, teacher.
Goodbye. Have a great day.
Goodbye.